In the last recording, we talked about how to get from the class, how first of all to define this constant and then how to get it by using the class name, because these are called static variables, maybe class level variables. They are not instance variables. They're defined once for all pizza orders. So when you want these kinds of constants, you ask for them via the class name, not an instance name like an order. You can do the same thing for dates, but remember there was a slight problem with dates. If users type them, they might be prevented from entering a date that they want because the typing and the date picker, if I wanted to type June here, it won't let me do it. So that might preclude you from using max, or particularly max order date, if users like to type. Now, if your users are not big typists and they're always clicking, then there's no reason you couldn't leave that stuff in. But when they're typing, that can cause problems, something to know about. I also demonstrated how to use a numeric up-down. I think I'm going to plug that in here to say you can do the same kind of features, define a constant in your business class, and put that into a numeric up-down to limit its capabilities so that they don't accidentally select values that are too high. But we can't count on the GUI doing all that work for us. So the business class still needs to validate this stuff. We're talking more about that next week. There's another tool that you can use to help prevent users from putting in bad data. It's called a mask text box. Access has the same feature built into it. What a mask text box allows you to do is define a pattern and say that a zip code looks like this. It's 5 digits, a dash, and 4 digits. And if you type anything less than that, it won't let you leave the field. That's one part of it that I don't like. It doesn't let you leave the field if you don't follow the mask. The other problem I have is the mask just doesn't work very well for a lot of stuff. It's a little annoying. You got to click at the beginning. You can't click at the middle and have it automatically jump in. So for me, it's more a pain. And most of what I would use the mask for, I can use KeyPress, which we're going to talk about next. So I'm not a big fan of that mask text box, but I do have extra credit on the assignment for Unit 2. If you want to try it, you can. There's an appendix that displays it, or that talks about it a little bit. As we mentioned earlier, validation happens at 3 times. As the user's typing keys, after every key, do validation. Sometimes we use that. Field level validation, we do almost for every single kind of field. The only type of fields we don't validate are checkboxes because you can't screw them up. So we're going to be doing a lot of field level validation. Every time you leave this text box, let's check to make sure what you entered is valid. Every time you leave the date picker, let's make sure it's valid. Even if you pick a radio button, how do we screw those up? Depends on how you're processing them. If you're looking at the text on the radio button and it's mistyped, I would like my business class to tell the GUI, hey, something's wrong. That's not one of my expected sizes. We can do those kinds of things. The GUI programmer can make mistakes. Our class can not only prevent the human user from making mistakes, but it can also prevent the GUI class from making mistakes. Class level validation we'll save for, if we get to it next week, I'll be impressed. That's the last step. After I validated every single piece, now let's validate the entirety to make sure that it's right. So now we're going to start talking about these 3 different levels. My guess is today, if we get all the way through key level validation, that'll be good. So on Tuesday, we really start getting into the meat, and that's the field level validation. Key level validation occurs as the user's pressing keys. And it must be done in the GUI class because that's input, right? Business class can't sense that a key has been pressed. That's not its job. Has no input output. Business classes never display messages. They don't accept keystrokes. That's what the GUI is for. The GUI then shares that information with the business class and say, here, what do you think of this? So the GUI is going to be doing this. So the GUI programmer has to be smart enough to say, this is a numeric field. It's where it's typically used. I'm not taking any text. It doesn't take a whole lot of business logic sense to say, this is a number, they don't want text. So we can define that and code it at the GUI level. Key level validation allows you to restrict what characters you're going to accept. So for instance, if I'm looking for zip codes, I'm only going to accept digits, assuming it's a 5-digit zip code. If I'm looking for phone numbers, digits, assuming I'm not looking for dashes. And normally when I'm asking somebody to enter a phone number, all I want is digits. I'll pretty it up for you later. Just give me the 10 digits, and that's what most people want to type. State codes, those are only letters. If you're not picking them from a combo box, my text box won't let you type numbers for a state code. If it is a number field, maybe we want to allow commas, maybe we want to allow decimal points, but if it's an integer value, we shouldn't allow decimal places. If it's relatively small, like the number of pizzas, I shouldn't allow commas. And we can restrict that. Steve?
So for zip codes, you had said that they should be like text fields, or they should be
They are text boxes, yep.
As long as you're not going to be doing math with them.
Right, they're text fields, good.
You want to do text, but you only want to accept numbers.
Right.
Okay.
So another concept we'll get into a little later in RDD about how do we store this stuff? Do I really need to store the dash in a zip code? It's always in the same place. Do I need to store the dashes in your phone number? Well, what if you are like, I think it's Mark Motors that likes international phone numbers with dots instead of dashes. We don't store any of that stuff. We just store 10 digits, or for zip codes, 5 or 9 digits. And then we ask the user, how do you want that displayed? Dots, parentheses around your area code, dashes, slashes, how do you want that? So we only store the minimum, then we format it later. So key level validation is going to prevent the user from pressing keys that we don't want. The event that we're going to use is the KeyPress event. Now, why does that say write cheese sticks first? I don't know, but I should follow my own instructions. Cheese sticks KeyPressed event. The KeyPress event happens every single time the user presses a key. Before they press the next one. Remember, computers are super fast. Between keystrokes, when you come up and before you start pressing the next one, there's thousands of things we can do. That's an infinite amount of time. So between keystrokes, we can do a lot of stuff. We're going to take advantage of it here. There are also, just so you know, key up and key down events. So as your key hits the bottom, you can do something. When the key finally comes back up, it's very similar to KeyPress. When the key comes back up, you can do something. Those two events, key down and key up, allow you to check for different things like shift keys and control keys and alt keys the KeyPress doesn't recognize. We can check for arrow keys. KeyPress just lets you press them. That's fine. We cannot intercept the arrow keys. We wouldn't want to. If the user is going to edit in there, they should be able to use the arrow keys. Key up and key down lets you check for just about anything. But they're more powerful than we need here, though I will tell you that I'm currently working on new versions of my KeyPress events because I discovered that my KeyPress events don't allow you to paste. Can't do Control V because it's not a acceptable character. Can't do Control C to copy. You have to right click and do those. And I've had a user say, I don't want that. I like Control C. I like Control V. So I'm working on new versions, and the new versions have to use key up and key down. When those are done, I will share them with you in Boker Tools. They're not done yet. So let's learn about KeyPress. We want to write a KeyPress event for text cheese sticks. So I'm going to my form. Here's my cheese sticks. And I want to create, if I double click that, I get the text changed event. That's not the same. It's not the same. It doesn't prevent the keys. It just tells me a key is changed. I want to prevent them. So we need a new event. So I'm going to the event handlers over here, the little lightning bolt, same thing we used last semester. And I'm going to create the key, notice here's key up, key down. I want key press. That might change, maybe yet this semester, doing that in my spare time. I double clicked it, so now I have a text cheese sticks key pressed event. This is going to prevent this method, don't forget still need full sentences. This method prevents the user from entering anything but digits into a numeric field. I'm being generic. I could say cheese sticks, right? But I'm going to reuse this a little bit later for our number of pies as well. So how do we know what key the user pressed? You might remember from last semester and even this semester that all these event handlers have event arguments that are sent to it. So this is information that the operating system, that your program is sending to this method. This is what's happened. And the event arguments are always called E. Inside the E parameter is a critical piece of information that we need called keychar. One type we have not seen much of since we started writing Visual Studio Code is the character type. We've learned about ints and doubles and decimals and strings. There is also a type called char. The char type can only accept a single character. So it's like strings for single characters, but it's a completely different type. And that's very handy. And so in this case, and one of the things that's handy about characters is I can ask, is that character one of the digits? I can't do that with a string. I can't say, is this string a digit, because a string could be lots of characters. So for a single character, I can say, for that character, is it a digit? And the good news is this E keychar is a character. So what I'm doing here is defining a variable called the key. Notice its type is char. That's a little different than we've seen before. And so the key is just my name for the key that the user pressed. I might not even need that variable, but I want you to see that we can do that. As we saw in my notes, I can now say if that key is a digit, let it go. If the key is a digit. No. Check syntax. The other way around. The key, that method, is part of the class character. So I have to say, check the character class and see if the key, if is digit, come on, thank you, the key. This logic, I have to look it up every single time because to me it's kind of inside out, right? Why can't I look at the key and say, am I a digit? Can't do that. What we have to do in order to use this is digit is send the key to is digit, which is buried inside the char class. To me that's backwards, but I don't get any control. Syntactically, that's now correct. Is it a digit? If it is, now what do we do if it is? Bottom line is nothing. Because if we don't do anything, it's telling the form. The form, by the way, has transferred control. The text box, in a way, has transferred control. It says the key has been pressed, so you, KeyPress, deal with it. And the KeyPress event has one of two choices. It can deal with it, or it can just leave it alone and say, I did, now go ahead and do what you would normally do. What we're doing here is intercepting a key. Before it displays in a text box, we're intercepting it. And we have to tell the text box whether we handled it, and if we did, then the text box doesn't, or whether we didn't handle it, which means you, text box, you do what you normally do, in other words, display it. Kind of a reverse logic. When I first saw this, I kind of rolled my eyes. If it is a digit, then E, that's the event handler, dot handled equals false. I didn't handle it, text box, you handle it, it's legal, you display it. Else, we need some curly brackets here. Else E handled equals true. What we're doing here is faking out the text box. You don't have to display it. I took care of it. If it's a bad character, I tell the text box I took care of it. Basically, what we did is absorbed it, didn't do anything with it, but the text box won't do anything with it either. That's one of those you just gotta see the logic. If you understand it, great. I have to review my notes every year because I always want to flip these around. E-handled, go ahead and it's good. That's not the question. The question is, did KeyPress handle it? Or is it returning control back to the text box and say, I didn't do anything with it. You go ahead and mess with it. Display it. But this all happens before the character is ever displayed. We've attached this to the cheese box or cheese sticks KeyPress event, so let's just test it. I'm going to type a letter. That's not a digit. Spaces.
But how do you delete it?
1, 2, 3. Cool. Oh, that's supposed to be 12. How do you delete it? You use the arrow keys because they still work, and press the delete key because it's still. No. In case you missed that, I can't press the backspace key. The KeyPress event has intercepted the backspace key and said, that's not a digit. I handled it. Ignore it. If the KeyPress event handles it, it's basically telling the text box, ignore it. Like it's doing with all my letters and spaces and commas. And here's an interesting one, a minus sign. It won't let me type a minus sign. That's cool. I don't really have to validate to see if it's negative. Oh, yes, we do. I, the business class, cannot count on the GUI to ensure that there's no minus signs entered. The GUI, the business class, has still got to check every stupid thing a user could do. So what do? I want the backspace key because real typists, when you make a mistake, you go dig and you back up. We add the backspace key to the list. How do I type a backspace key? You don't. You have to know its magic code. Remember /R/N, there's also a /B for backspace. So what I'm going to do is in here, I'm going to type another char, and I'm going to call it backspace. No reason we can't type the whole thing. And that's equal to apostrophes /B. Not quotes? No. Quotes are for strings. Apostrophes are for characters. So this says, make me a variable that basically has the magic code for a backspace key. And if it's a digit, or, remember that from last year? Oh, been a while. 2 vertical bars right above your enter or return key, or the key that was pressed double equals the backspace key. Then tell the text box to deal with it, display it, including displaying a backspace, which moves the cursor back and erases. It's a special case. Why they chose to let the delete key go, but the backspace key doesn't? Notice the delete key worked. I didn't have to do anything. Basically, KeyPress does not intercept the delete key. Doesn't intercept arrow keys, the home key, the end key. Those are all navigation keys, and for some reason they lump the delete key in there and say, we're ignoring that. If it's in there, it's good. Key up and key down. If you don't want the delete key, you can intercept it with key up or key down. But in our case, the delete key works, that's fine, but I also want the backspace key to work. Let's test that. Backspace. Much better. About commas? Not allowed. Decimal point. We didn't say decimal points allowed. Oh my goodness. So we then add a decimal place. Well, kinda. But how many decimal places does a number have? 1. How many commas do they have? Oh, I don't know, unlimited, but they got to be in these goofy places. What if we do want a negative number? Or a dollar sign? The dollar sign should be at the beginning. The minus sign should be at the beginning, and it should only be 1. Uh-oh. This logic says you can type, if I put a dollar sign in here, it'll let me type as many dollar signs as I want. In the middle of the number, at the end, at the beginning, who cares? That's not good. Same thing with decimal places. Here's a decimal place. Oh, I got a couple more. Here you go. The only one I don't worry too much about are commas. Go ahead, type whatever you want, because I have to take them all out anyways. Remember unformat? We can't parse a number with commas in them, so I have to take them out anyways. And so I let users type commas wherever they want, and then I just strip them out and hope they were in the right places. And then I put them back by formatting the number to put them in the right place. Because it's easy, it's possible, but it's very difficult to make sure the commas are in the right place. Right now, with what we have here, we're not even accepting any. So that's the KeyPress event. Now this says if you don't include a minus sign, you don't have to worry about negative numbers. I need to remove that. It's not true. The business class still has to worry about negative numbers. If I want cheese sticks, I have to make sure that cheese sticks is greater than 0 and less than the max, whatever that is. We'll talk about how to do that in a little while. Right now, we're just preventing any of that stuff from happening. Notice if I want a comma, ticks, those are apostrophes around the comma, and it's another or. If it's a digit, or it's a backspace, or it's a comma, go ahead and let it go. With cheese sticks, I don't even want commas. Here's the handled equals true. I saw this today. I've not had a chance to remove it. Add text numpys to the handles clause. What's the handles clause? Any VB programmers in the room? VB does handles. If you want multiple objects to have the same event, you put a handles and then you just list them all. That's VB. I've been teaching C# for 2.5 years and it's still in it. I want to put my numpys attached to this. How do we do that? Just a quick review. Take numpys, KeyPress. I'm still in the event handlers here. KeyPress. And say, you're going to be handled by text cheese sticks KeyPress. Well, that's a stupid name. But now it should be handled by it. And so when I go to numpys, can't type unless it's numbers. Backspace key still works. So these are reusable within a form sometimes. You just link all my numeric integer text boxes. It's not about cheese sticks, it's about integers. So I'm going to say text integer KeyPress. And remember, when you do this, you want to rename it everywhere. So now it's got a little more generic name. This is one you can easily steal, right? This method prevents the user from entering anything but digits. If you wanted to, you could say and the backspace key. But functionally, it's just digits into a numeric field. We could say an integer field. Integer field. You can just link all your text boxes that deal with integers to this thing, and it'll prevent anything but digits and backspaces from occurring. Better double check because I just modified my code. Come back in here and it still works. Yep. Renaming it's a little dangerous, but I remember to do it everywhere. Update all occurrences of text cheese sticks.keypress. We're good. You got 4 integer fields. Tie them all to this same way. Questions? But go ahead.
How do you do it you're doing it for integer, you could do it for alphabet too, right?
Yes,
I do that one.
good question. I hardly ever do it. That's why I don't ask. Like first names, I don't want any numbers in there, but maybe dashes, probably spaces. Had some people put commas in there in last names because they want to say Spindler, comma, junior, period. If it's a text box like addresses and names and stuff, whatever, type whatever you want. You screw it up, go back and fix it later. Right? If it's a state, I'm guessing that there are other, I can say char.is letter, is letter or digit, is lower, is number. I don't know why that's different than is digit. Indicates whether the character is specified string. Oh, yeah, string. Oh, is characterized as a number. How's that different than digit? I don't know.
Don't have to
I don't know. I'd have to go dig it out. I always use digit. Right? But there's lots of other is's here, right? Is a control character, is punctuation, is it a separator, is it a cert? What, I don't know what the heck those are. Is it a symbol? Define symbol. Star, slash, wingdings thinger? I don't know. I don't use them. Is it uppercase? Is it white space? Spaces, tabs. So lots of possibilities. I check for digits in my numeric field, and when it comes to text, whatever you want. If it was a state field, I'd be using letter, right? Realistically, my states are grabbed with combo boxes. It's easier. So, good question. I don't have a straight answer because I don't usually do it. The next question is, well, what about numbers with commas? And what about dollar signs if the user wants to type a dollar sign into their coupon value? How do I get decimal places in there? Dun, da, 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 into the phone booth, out comes Voker Tools. In Voker Tools, there are methods that are commented out because they have to be linked to events. And so I can't just simply leave them in there, and we can't just link to them. I have not figured out a way to do that. I can't simply put this in here because the KeyPress event stuff doesn't work. I can't just tie to this when it's in a different class. The event handler has to be in the same class and form as the object that you're tying it to. Can't have them in a different place. So what I've done is I've put comments in here, and you get to steal them. Here's a currency KeyPress. Like, what are the rules for currency? $1 sign, 1 decimal place, maybe a comma or 2 $1 million items. But if there's a dollar sign, it better be at the beginning. And if there's a decimal place, there better only be 1. And look at the logic required to say, I only want $1 sign at the beginning. I want 1 decimal place. Where it goes doesn't matter. Because then what happened is I wrote this, and I started using it, and I highlighted some text, and I said, all these numbers in that decimal place, just replace it with a decimal place. It wouldn't let me, because there was already a decimal place in there. So this selection stuff that you see here, selected text, text box, text contains, there's another one of those string functions, contains, we talked about it. Selection start, selected text. Does the selected text have a decimal place in it? If it does, then go ahead and allow another one, because we're going to replace the selected text, right? And so that made it complicated so that it was useful, but look at all that logic. Just to say, go ahead, let them have a dollar sign, go ahead, let them have a comma. If I remember right, what this does is if you're in the middle and you say, wait, I want a dollar sign, you just press it, it automatically jumps you to the beginning, so this is where it goes. Let me put it there for you. You already have a decimal point, won't let you put another one in. That's currency KeyPress. So if you have a currency field, we do. We're going to steal this. In Voker Tools, there is a percent KeyPress. There better be 1% sign, and it better be on the end. Probably not any commas, but a decimal point's cool. Yeesh. Aren't you glad you didn't have to write that? And this one is decimal KeyPress that allows a decimal place, probably with commas. Is it a digit? Is it a backspace? Is it a comma? If it's any one of those, just let it go. So you can put commas wherever you want. That might sound a little goofy, but trying to figure out whether the comma's in the right place is near impossible, because how do we type it? 1 comma. Wait a minute, that's not legal. Yes, it is. I'm not done yet. 1, 1, 1. It's not impossible, but it's very hard to anticipate that. And so I just say, yeah, throw the commas in wherever you want, because what are we going to do with those commas in? We're going to unformat them, strip them all out. So put them in wherever you want. I don't care. Dollar signs, on the other hand, I can anticipate. Decimal places, I can check. Does the text box already contain a decimal point? Or does the selected text, oh, this is a not. If the text box does not contain a decimal point, or it's selected text and there's a decimal point in there, then go ahead and let them press 1. Handle equals false. Display it. Otherwise, can't do it. Holy cow. I thought I fixed that. End fee. Anyways, we want currency. So I'm just going to steal all this stuff. So these you can't just link to like you did unformat. You can't just tie to them, say vtools.currency KeyPress, because the event handler has to be in the same class. So we have to copy them. Copy it. Go to my event handler, my code for pizza. And this is going to be called text currency KeyPress. So that's TXTC. So that would be up above here. Paste. Now everything's cool. Except nothing's tied to it. I have code, but it's not an event handler for anybody. So I have to go to my form and I have to pick my coupon because it could have a dollar sign. And I need to tie that to its KeyPress event. Which one? That one. Now when I run, cheese sticks doesn't take letters, but it will take digits and a decimal point. No. Why not? Did I tie it to the wrong one? No, I tied it to currency, didn't I? Dollar sign. Oh, that's cheese. Stupid user. Coupon. You guys aren't helping much. Just let me embarrass myself. It's okay. Dot. That's cool. 25. Dot. Nope, I already got one. Highlight. Dot. Cool, now it works. 25. Oh, that's currency. Dollar sign. So nope, you're not beginning. I'm not doing it. I think in my web version I have it jump and put it at the beginning. But if I go to the beginning and put it in, it goes, oh, okay. Oh, that's a really smart text box. It's a pain to write that code. I'm pretty sure this one allows me to put in commas. That's stupid. We're not going to have $1,000 comma or $1,000 coupon, right? Should take the commas out. It's an exercise for you in the homework assignment. Take the commas out. You just go through here. Where does it say commas are legal? Right there. Strip it. Any place you find commas, say, no, we're not taking them anymore. You just take that part out and it no longer accepts commas. I did not want to create a currency with dollar signs, a currency with euro, or currency with commas, a currency without commas. It's just one, and you tweak it if you need to. I provide them. You just need minor tweaks to make things work the way you want them to. If you're writing a program for somebody in Europe, you take this guy out and you put the euro symbol in. You probably remember how to do that from your Unit 4 program. If not, ask somebody who did the currency converter. You can check for any kind of character. So now my program, I haven't even done anything to the business class, is already smarter. It won't let me type names that are too long. It won't let me pick a size that isn't on the list. It won't let me pick a topping that isn't on the list. This should probably be replaced with that. I'm thinking about doing it before your next class period to slide that in there. I can't pick a soda that isn't on the list. Yes, I can. The Volker soda. It'll let me, but not for long. But it won't let me type characters in here. It won't let me type characters in here. I've already made my program smarter. Without even touching the business class. These are things I could have shown you last semester if we'd had time, but we didn't. We used try-catch. That try-catch, for try to convert this number, this thing into no more. Try-catch goes away. I'm not a big fan of try, well, actually take that back. It's still here. All right, try-catch is actually how we communicate from the business class to the GUI. We use a try-catch. Try this. Hey, business class, you like this? Send it back and it catches it. Go, I guess not. But it's not this generic try-catch. See if anything's wrong on my form. We're writing code that's smarter than that now. Try-catch is still there, but multiple try-catches and very small try-catches. We'll see those next time. So there's KeyPress. Your programs are already smarter. I don't think I've received any assignment trackers yet, so none of you are bored, but just in case, let's review the assignment for this unit so we kind of have a feel for where you're going. Class is this. There we go. Get a copy of the gas estimate program from the iDrive. Time to change the assignment. You don't have an iDrive anymore. Wherever you see iDrive, that's old news for OneDrive. Go to OneDrive, get a copy of the starter, or use yours, and add a class. I was talking about this before class with Lyle. So why do you make us do this? Why don't we just start from scratch? Because isn't that when you build classes before you even start writing the, yeah. However, one of the comments I get from graduates is that you don't get enough practice maintaining existing code. Now, the gas estimate program is not broke, but you're still maintaining it. You're adding new features to it, like validation, like a class that wasn't added to it when it was written. And there's little headaches that get caused by that, right? Or big headaches that get caused by that. And so that's why, at least in these programs, you're not building from scratch. Get a little experience maintaining an existing piece of code, and if you're using my starter or somebody else's existing piece of code, create a class. Add some stuff we haven't talked about yet. Mileages should be integers, MPGs should be doubles, create a constructor. Ooh, that sounds familiar, sort of. Define appropriate business constants. All the stuff that used to be in the main form in the gas mileage program, like what's the min, max, all that stuff, now going into the business class. Designate that the customer's name is required. We haven't talked about this yet. Make sure the name should be capitalized automatically. I love that feature. I hate websites that don't capitalize my name. I'm going to show you how to do it. It can be done automatically, and it's fairly smart. Capitalizes all kinds of cool stuff. And it's in Volker tools. So you just steal it. Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But the point here is you can start start building a business class. You know how to do that. You know how to create constants in a business class. You know how to create a constructor. You already know what properties you're going to need, right? Because gas mileage had city miles and highway miles and MPG and dates and customer names and all that stuff. All goes into the business class. So you can start on that when you think you're ready. Or you can wait till later. So that's where we're headed, but I saw two here. There was a second assignment. One said GUI validation. What does that mean? Update to validate all inputs. Why are there two? Oh, this is build a business class. That one I think I assigned you pretty quickly. Maybe not. There it is. Oh, that's the lab. And Unit 2, Part 1. I'm pretty sure that's the business class. So it's still a little ways down the road. But then there's the second part. So one of these is Part 1 and the other one's Part 2. I think that one's everything. Using your gas probe from the last assignment, that means the one with the business class in it, now do some more stuff to it. This is a program that gets built in phases, 2 parts.